We always thought zombies were the dead. It was the easiest story to tell ourselves. We chose a word that meant decay, rot, and finality because believing in monsters was simpler than believing in responsibility. The first hint we were wrong came when the scientists noticed something strange. The infected, the so-called zombies, didn't decompose. Their bodies seemed to pause, caught in a bizarre equilibrium. Wounds would close, but incorrectly, silly. Their eyes weren't clouded by death, but by overload, as if they were processing too much information all at once. Governments labeled them monsters because calling them people would have meant listening. But some people did listen. Children, a few exhausted doctors, they saw the patterns. The zombies didn't just shamble randomly. They moved with purpose towards specific places at specific times, power plants, research facilities, political summits. It was never mindless. When one was finally captured, held behind reinforced glass, it didn't snarl or thrash. It just stared with this unbearable intensity at a calendar on the wall. Its lips moved silently, without sound. A linguist, watching the footage, had a breakthrough. The movements weren't the gnashing of hunger. They were dates. The creature was counting. The truth of our world began to fracture when it finally spoke. The voice was hoarse, strained, unused to air. It wasn't a growl. It was a question. Delayed again, it rasped, "What year is it?" When they told it the year, it screamed. Not a scream of rage, but a pure, soul-crushing grief. It collapsed inward, like a runner who had given everything, only to arrive seconds after the finish line closed. Under interrogation, it revealed the impossible. They weren't dead, not resurrected. They were displaced, humans from decades in the future. They came from a time where cities still stood, but felt empty, where the oceans were quiet because nothing lived loudly enough to disturb them. Humanity had survived every disaster except itself. They hadn't invented time travel for exploration or profit. They built it for one reason: to prevent a single, cascading event. An event that didn't end the world with a bang, but bent it so slowly, so subtly, that people didn't even notice they were losing the ability to care. Empathy became a weakness. Cruelty became efficiency. Compassion became impractical. And by the time anyone realized, it was irreversible. So, they built the machines. They tore holes backward through time, but the process was brutal. It couldn't bring a mind through intact, only a body, driven by a singular, desperate purpose. All nuance, all personality was stripped away, overloaded by the temporal paradox. Their empathy was burned out by necessity, so they could act without hesitation. Those were the zombies, not monsters. They were emergency measures, volunteers who chose to become less than human so that humanity could remain more than just efficient. They targeted our leaders, our inventors, our most critical infrastructure, not out of hatred, but cold calculation. History had shown them that persuasion always failed. Only interruption worked. With every jump back, they tried to arrive earlier, change something small, sabotage a project, delay a vote, destroy a prototype. But the timeline resisted. It fought back like a living thing, correcting itself, pushing the catastrophe forward in different forms. In their desperation, they started coming back in greater numbers, further and further into the past. Their bodies degraded under the strain of time, their memories fragmented. This caused the vacant stares, the repetitive movements, the things we mistook for mindlessness, and our soldiers shot them on sight. We never realized we were killing the ghosts of our own future, people who had already lived through the consequences of the choices we were making right now. The world panicked. The attacks felt coordinated, but senseless. Meanwhile, the zombies mourned. Every bullet that struck them just confirmed the future they were trying to prevent. Then, one of them reached its target, a university lab. Inside, a brilliant young engineer named Mara was putting the final touches on an algorithm, a tool she designed to optimize human decision-making on a global scale, to remove bias and speed up progress. It was the seed, the very beginning of the catastrophe. When the zombie reached her, it didn't attack. It fell to its knees. Its hands shook as it tried to speak, forcing words through a throat that barely worked. It said her name. It said it with a familiarity that froze her in place. He called her brilliant and kind, and then he apologized for what he had to do. She demanded to know who he was, and he answered. He was her son. Not from this timeline, not yet, but from the future she was building. He begged her to stop. He explained how her invention, created with the best intentions, would first be used to govern supply chains, then justice systems, then, eventually, our emotional responses. It would slowly teach people to trust outputs over their own instincts, until empathy was just an inefficiency to be programmed out of the system. She listened. A part of her had always feared this exact outcome, but she told herself that if she didn't build it, someone else would, someone worse. As alarms blared and soldiers closed in, her son stood up. The light in his eyes was dimming as his body prepared to fulfill its final, unchangeable directive: destroy the lab and everyone in it. History had shown him that when she lived, the world died a quiet, passionless death. The compulsion was overriding a love that still flickered somewhere deep behind the damage. He couldn't stop himself. In that last second, Mara made the only decision that mattered. She smashed her own work, triggering a cascade failure that erased years of her research. The moment the server sparked and died, the zombie in front of her collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. The timeline had shifted just enough to release him. Across the world, the shambling stopped. Zombies froze mid-step. Some began to cry, some laughed, some simply vanished as the paradox resolved itself. Humanity called it a miracle, a plague that just suddenly stopped. We never understood how close we came to becoming a world that functioned perfectly but felt nothing at all. In the years that followed, people told stories about the zombie outbreak as a tragedy we narrowly avoided. But a few of us, the ones who were there, carried a quieter truth. We knew the monsters weren't invaders. They were warnings. They were the future, fighting with itself to protect something fragile and so easily discarded. We learned that sometimes saving the world means becoming something that history will hate, just so history never has to know why. Thanks for watching. Remember to follow for more stories that make you think.